I was at work and all of a sudden I felt really weak, felt like I was going to be sick. I just had this fever. My friend, he drove me home. From probably about midnight, I was just really restless. And then it got to about 3 a.m. My hands had felt really cold. I didn't really have much sensation in my hands, so I decided I'm going to get up and I'm going to have a hot shower. And as soon as I got into the bathroom and I had taken my shirt off, there was this big purple rash across my chest and up my arms. And that's when I was like, something's not quite right here.
And when I woke up and the bathroom light was on, I thought, that's weird. So I got up and went through to him, showed me his hands, and it was really white, and you just said it was so cold you couldn't warm it up.
Yeah.
And so I just said to him, go back to bed, you'll be right in the morning. And so he went back to bed. I went into our room, and I don't know why, but I looked up Healthline, and so I rang them and went through a range of things, and they said to me, you need to go and get a clear glass and roll it over the marks on his arms. And I said, what's happening? What am I supposed to see? Because nothing's changing. And she said, you need to put the phone down. I'm going to ring the ambulance now because your son's seriously ill. I think they took him into HDU, and all of a sudden they were cutting his clothes off, and his body had started to shut down, his organs had started to fail. And then someone came out to me and said, have you got family here? And I said, no, my husband and my daughters are at home. And the nurse said, I think you need to ring them. They need to come to the hospital now. And that's when I knew that he was really sick. They said that that's what they suspected, is that he had meningitis. And then he was moved into ICU for 4 days. It has such an overwhelming impact on your body top to toe.
At my lowest weight, I was at 46, 40, and I was skin and bone.
Well, you had no strength in your legs, you had to learn to walk again.
That was another thing.
Once you were back in the war. Yeah. So Nick had septicemia, so it was like he had frostbite. Because they had to remove his fingers, they had to then do an operation, and they removed the dead tissue from the fingers that were affected, and then they put that into his tummy, and it helps the skin regrow and keeps the blood flow to his fingers. And so that required 2 major surgeries.
I think it was, 4 weeks on one side and then 3 on the other.
And so then he had subsequent surgeries to then tidy his fingers up. Healthline was our lifesaver. So if we hadn't phoned them, I would have told Nick to go back to bed, and I'll take you to the doctor in the morning. Well, the morning mightn't have happened if I hadn't rung Healthline.
There's a lot of, he'll be right, I'll just sleep it off. But with something like meningitis, you go to sleep it off, you might not wake up the next morning.
Miwa was an all-round type of child. She was very academic. She loved music. She had just completed Outward Bound. She was training to run 10K. She really had no health issues in her life at all. But yeah, just a really kind, special person. It was orientation week at Canterbury University. On Sunday morning, she'd woken up not feeling very well. She had symptoms that looked like the flu. We called her at 5:30 on Sunday night, and she said she had a headache and she wasn't feeling well, but she was her normal positive upmarket self. At about 5 o'clock, some of her flatmates heard her in the kitchen, and she was walking around, obviously somewhat dazed and unsure, and they just took her back to bed and sat with her. And then at about 7:30 in the morning, she stopped breathing. And it was about 10:30 when we got the call, and we then had to tell our son that his sister had died, which was very hard. The question I constantly ask myself is, why didn't I know? Why didn't I know about meningitis? Why wasn't I aware of this risk? What I'd like people to know is that it's a disease we could eradicate if we extended the vaccinations enough. And So if I could get that message out to young people, to parents, to grandparents, to get these young people who are so vulnerable in that vulnerable age, to get vaccinated and take that risk out of their lives. There are enough risks for young people that you can't protect yourself from. So this is one you can. So just do it.
The people that have the greatest risk, anyone's at risk, right? Anyone can get these diseases, but the people that are most at risk of meningococcal disease are people in certain age groups, particularly the very youngest, infants under a year or two of age, and then children under 5, followed by people who are in their adolescence and early adulthood, and then older people. But also across all age groups, there's people who've got problems with their immune system. So they're another important group as well. And also people living in crowded conditions and other places where you're perhaps more at risk for coming in contact with the bug.
In the space of 72 hours, we went from being happily going to be married to getting married to having, you know, your whole life kind of flipped upside down. Me and Jamaica, we met in year 13 at high school. We were together for 8.5 years. She was just the kindest, gentlest soul, really. So the wedding day was the 9th of December, 2017. It was a beautiful day. It was incredibly hot. And as she was walking down the aisle, I just knew something wasn't quite right with her. She just looked a bit unwell. And she was covered in goosebumps like she was cold. But we got through the vows, that was all good. We went away to do photographs. And she just said, I'm just too sick. Like, I don't think I can get through it. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, let's go back to the venue. We'll just sort of put you in a room and like give you pills, see what we can, try to get through the day, you know, if we can. We still at that point didn't think anything was critically wrong, just sort of was a really unfortunate timing, bad case of the flu. You know, she was complaining about having a headache, I think, and you know, I think she was quite sensitive to light, and so we just kind of periodically checked on her. She tried coming out once to sit at the main table, but she didn't stay out for very long. And then it was clear that she wasn't getting better, and she just wanted to go back to our hotel that we had booked, just to try and sleep it off, really. She hopped into bed. You know, I sort of kissed her and said, look, I'll go back to the wedding and I'll sort the guests and I'll be front of house, you know. And I think it was about 9 p.m. My auntie went and checked on her, who's a nurse, and had said she's actually looking better, she's getting better, and Jamaica said she was feeling better. I got dropped back to the hotel, and I think I arrived there just before midnight. I turned on the light and I went to kiss her hello, and I just stopped myself because I immediately could see that she was just covered head to toe in a rash. And so I just instinctively knew that something was very, very, very wrong. The ambulance arrived, and you could everything just went from thinking everything was pretty bad to then everything kind of got significantly worse. And yeah, we arrived at the hospital. They worked on her for quite a long time, and they told us that unfortunately she was gone. And so it would have been about 3 a.m. When she died. And so she texted me about her symptom, obviously, of the sore neck, which apparently I don't even think is a common symptom necessarily, but it is a telling symptom at 3 a.m. the previous morning. So then 12 hours later after that, we got married at 3 p.m. just after, because she was a little bit late. And then 12 hours after that, she was dead. I think it's so important to be aware of the disease and just have it in the back of your mind, so that if, despite it being a relatively rare, I guess, occurrence and a reasonably rare disease, I guess, it still happens to people, and the mortality of it is quite high. And so I think it's just important to get in early, and just be aware that it's around. And that was always my biggest thing. I didn't know about it. It just didn't seem like it could happen, but it just can happen randomly. It can happen to anyone.
There's a range of vaccines that protect against meningitis, different types of meningitis, and septicemia. None of them will keep you protected for your life, but they induce a long-term memory. So you have the memory there and you can go and give it a boost. But diseases like meningococcal disease move so fast. You hear the stories about somebody being well in the morning and very sick by evening. That's not enough time for the memory to that disease to kick in and produce the antibodies and things and those other goodies that you need. That takes a few days. So you need to have a good presence of antibody ready to go. And that's why to maintain that protection, you need to get boosters.
I kind of just woke up one morning and I felt a bit off. Through my neck was really sore. I felt under the weather, a bit headachy, that sort of thing. First call I did was to my auntie Marg, and she told me to ring the healthline. They advised that we went and saw the urgent doctor. I was seen very briefly, but anyway, they sent me home, told me I had a cold. I was living by myself at that time, so Mum decided to stay with me that night, and then I kind of just deteriorated from there. I became quite disoriented. I was up vomiting a lot during the night, and then I started to get feverish. That's when I called out to Mum. Mum was driving and I was just trying to tell her to hurry because I just felt like something was not right, and then I have no memory. I did start to go into multi-organ failure at that point. They started to suspect it might have been meningitis. They ended up putting me into an induced coma that night, where it was touch and go whether I'd survive. So I ended up being in an induced coma for 9 days. My kidneys, liver and lungs pretty much all shut down, and my heart was not great. I lost my spleen due to a blood clot, and then I got septicemia too with the meningitis. So after waking up, I couldn't even lift my arms off the bed, couldn't lift my head off the bed, and that was like that for a few weeks. So after the first 3 weeks, I went to the renal ward. My kidneys, they were still not working. So I was on getting dialysis and then had the first surgery. So that was the toe amputations, and they did skin grafts. The grafts didn't take over my Achilles. And then on Christmas Eve, I had to go into hospital to see the orthopedic surgeon just to get an opinion on my right ankle. And he told me I had to have surgery that day or I'd end up losing it. It was severely infected. So it was probably maybe 6 months at home, recuperating, trying to gain weight, trying to get more mobile. With the fentanyl, it helped relieve the pain for maybe a day, but I had changed the patch every 3 days. And so 2 out of those 3 days I could hardly walk because it was so painful. And it got to the point where I was like, well, this foot's not functional. I'm not gonna be able to do anything on it. And ended up amputating in June of 2021. So it's been 3 years now. It was a good decision. Even though, I mean, obviously there's still ups and downs with it and issues and things, but it's way better than the foot I was left with. The following year, my kidneys started going downhill. My mum and my older brother both got the workup to see if they could donate. Because of their blood type, they couldn't directly donate to me. So that's when we went in the exchange program. Nathan ended up being the chosen one. It just so happened that they could find a match for him within the chain. So yeah, I got my kidney late last year. It's been pretty good since. We did have the B vaccine that went around the primary schools, but I ended up getting the W strain, and we were only vaccinated for the B. And I mean, it would have been out of my system by the time I was 23 as well. So yeah, definitely could have been a different story if I had been vaccinated. So I think obviously that is the main message, but also to know the signs and symptoms. When I rang the health line at the start, every second question was, do you have a rash? And I didn't, and the rash didn't show up until I was in ICU in Dunedin. So that was over 2 days after my initial symptoms. Life is very different to what it was before. I mean, I don't even think I can remember what it was like before I got sick.
I think what's really important for people to know is that meningitis and septicemia are caused by many different organisms, and a vaccine that protects you against one type isn't going to protect you against another. So to be aware of that, and also that the protection isn't necessarily lifelong, so to always remain vigilant.
Courtney was just a normal 16-year-old girl. She was just a bubbly, bright. She was quite an intelligent wee thing.
We didn't actually realise how wide her circle was and how many people she'd actually touched until she'd gone.
Pretty special kid, really. Yeah. Courtney kind of just, her first comment to me, she said, "Oh, Mum, I think I've got hypothermia," but it was really just quite a casual offhand comment. And then as we were actually heading down to Twizel, it was a couple of days after Christmas, and I was a little bit concerned about her because she actually slept all the way down, which is not something Courtney kind of does. She saw the doctor 3 times.
3 times in 2 days.
In 2 days. And it was on that 3rd visit she collapsed in their surgery. And then we were transferred to Timaru Hospital.
And so we spent several hours there, and then after probably a couple of hours, they come and took us aside and said that Courtney was dying, and that they didn't know what she was dying from. So the Westpac was called after several hours that she left Timaru in the helicopter. That was the last time we saw Courtney conscious. So. And sort of the last thing she said to us was that make sure they got a double bed for me and make sure they don't, yeah.
She said to me, probably, the hardest thing, and it's never left me, and it never ever will, is she said, "Mummy, please don't let them put me to sleep forever." So they were the last words that Courtney ever said to us. So it was pretty heartbreaking, that, yeah. Of course, once we got to Christchurch Hospital, she'd undergone surgery immediately. And again, they weren't sure what it was, but then that's when they said they suspected meningitis. And sadly, 3 days later, they just couldn't get in front of it. The hardest thing was that she was actually so heavily bandaged because of all her operations that we couldn't even hold her hand, you know, and that. It's just pretty tough. Yeah, pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a decision that no parent should have to make, is to turn off life support for their child. So,
yeah. There's always that big hole in our life that nothing will ever fill that. So, I liken it to people, you know, that it's like your life's like a jigsaw puzzle and someone's actually just throwing ours in the air and we can never find that one piece. It'll never be complete again.
For me, you know, it's things like driving down the road and seeing a car coming towards you with a father and daughter in it, and they're laughing and joking, you know, and it just knocks you for 6. When we were told it was meningitis, we had no knowledge of what meningitis was. We thought that Courtney was protected by the vaccination she was first given as a baby, and so, yeah. You know, if we had known there was another vaccine available, but she would have had it.
And that's why we're really proactive about informing all our young people to get vaccinated, you know.
The whole sad thing about this is it didn't need to happen. I mean, if we had a vaccination program where everyone was protected, this wouldn't have happened. And we know it will work. We know the vaccinations work. We just need to get them into people's arms. You know, this is a disease that is actually completely preventable. yeah, look, we just don't want anyone else to go to hell and back like we have.